Hello and a very warm welcome. You're watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Let's get started. Our top focus tonight: has Pakistan blown up its Islamic NATO fantasy? With explosions tearing through Kabul, Pakistan has not admitted to any strikes yet, but statements coming in from Pakistan trigger serious questions. Also on the show for you tonight, Donald Trump's desperate bid for the 2025 Nobel Peace Prize has ended in disappointment. We're unpacking all the developments for you. Could Iran join the post-Gaza peace deal? We tell you all that you need to know and what all has happened in the last 24 hours. All this and more coming up. Tonight on Gravitas, we tell you why and how Pakistan's Islamic NATO fantasy has suffered a major setback, not by external factors, but by its own decisions. A series of explosions reportedly tore through Kabul last night. The Taliban administration confirmed that there was, in fact, the investigations were underway, while stating that there were no casualties. Reports suggesting a targeted airstrike may have been aimed at the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan chief, Noor Wali Mahsood. The explosions also coincided with the arrival of the Afghan foreign minister in India for a 6-day visit, the first such trip since the Taliban's return to power. And curiously enough, Pakistan has till now not admitted to strikes. But the statements made by the Pakistan Defence Minister presenting a rather interesting coincidence. Just hours before the Kabul blasts, Asif, while addressing the National Assembly, had warned Afghanistan that Islamabad's patience was quote-unquote running out. Not just that, Asif also issued an enough is enough warning for Afghanistan and called cross-border terrorism intolerable, and vowed to hunt down militants wherever they are. Just within hours of that happening, reports of explosions in Kabul started surfacing. And just a few hours ago, Pakistan's top military spokesman has said that the country will continue to do whatever is necessary to safeguard the lives and the property of its people. Listen to this first.
At the same time, to safeguard the lives and property of the people of Pakistan and to protect the country's territorial integrity, we are doing and will continue to do whatever is necessary. There should be no doubt about this.
If Pakistan did carry out this strike, it has not only crossed a red line with the Taliban, but also demolished its own dream of forming what its leaders have described as an Eastern Islamic NATO. And just last week, Pakistan's Deputy Prime Minister, remember, claimed that several nations were eager to join a Saudi-Pakistan defense pact that could evolve into a NATO-like alliance. And that fantasy now lies in ruins. Instead of uniting the Muslim world under its military leadership, Sunni-dominated Pakistan, on the face, pretends to be brothers with Sunni-dominated Afghanistan, but keeps hurting or exploiting it. And this is not new. Pakistan split apart in 1971, remember, after alienating its own eastern population. The strikes on Kabul marking what could perhaps be described as the second disintegration of Pakistan. A political, diplomatic, and ideological collapse unfolding. Over recent months, cross-border clashes between Pakistan and Afghanistan have intensified, and Pakistan has also bombed Shia-dominated Iran just last year. Its non-state actors keep perpetrating attacks, so much so that Iran has a wall built for some safety from the Pakistan terror infiltrators. Pakistan now finding itself at war on multiple fronts with its neighbors, with its ethnic minorities, and increasingly with itself. From Lahore to Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, the country is seeing protests against the Pakistan establishment. Just yesterday, protesters clashed in Islamabad with the police following calls for a protest by the Islamist group Tehreek-e-Labbaik Pakistan. While late last month and earlier this month, Pakistan-occupied Kashmir was in a state of intense unrest. And there is history to Pakistan's treatment with different sects and communities. Abdul Ghaffar Khan, known widely as the Frontier Gandhi for his non-violent resistance against British rule in India, on multiple occasions was arrested and put under house arrest by Pakistan leaders post-partition. Islamabad once jailed Ghaffar Khan for opposing the one-unit scheme that merged all western provinces to dilute East Pakistan's power. One of the many factors that ultimately led to the birth of Bangladesh, and the pattern continued under every regime. Under Prime Minister Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, in fact, Pakistan's army launched a massive military operation in Balochistan. Entire villages were bombed from the air, thousands were displaced, and then came General Zia-ul Haq, whose dictatorship from 1977 to 1988 turned Sindh into a virtual war zone. And 5 decades later, the same militarized playbook continues. And now, with the Kabul bombings, Pakistan's cycle of internal and external conflict has reached a dangerous peak. The dream of an Islamic NATO lies shattered. Not because of foreign enemies, but because Islamabad has once again turned its guns on those it calls allies. Pakistan's greatest enemy, it seems, is no longer across its borders. It is within. On to some breaking developments coming in at this point. The China-US tariff war set to explode. US President Donald Trump in the latest has said that he will not meet the Chinese President Xi Jinping during the upcoming APEC summit in South Korea, a very crucial development. Let's tell you what more is known at this point. Taking to Truth Social, the US President has said some very strange things are happening in China. They are becoming very hostile and sending letters to countries throughout the world that they want to impose export controls on each and every element of production having to do with rare earths and virtually anything else they can think of, even if it's not manufactured in China. Now, the context being Trump's comments are coming after China, remember, tightened export controls on rare earths and other materials that are critical for advanced tech manufacturing. As the trade negotiations continue with the US, it processes around 90% of the world's rare earths, which go into just about everything from solar panels to smartphones. That's how crucial they are. And they've also been a key bargaining chip ahead of that expected meeting between the Chinese leader and the US president. But now in the latest interesting turn of events with the statement coming in from the US president, in fact, Beijing had already restricted processing technology and unauthorized overseas cooperation. In the latest, the US president's statement there on your screen. Let's go straight across now to our correspondent, Susan Tehrani, who's been tracking those developments. Susan, very interesting given the backdrop of those tensions and the tariff war now continuing to escalate and could take a dangerous turn.
Yeah, Molly, it's being alleged that the Chinese government has been sending these letters to governments around the world, basically saying that they are going to put in export restrictions for rare earth minerals, which, as you mentioned, are very important. China, of course, controls the majority and has a monopoly on these rare earth minerals. President Trump said that China is trying to hold the world captive. He says he's preparing massive new tariffs and other functional countermeasures against Chinese imports, warning that the U.S. has its own monopolies in certain sectors. But we can definitely say at this time that Chinese-U.S. relations at an all-time low. And for those expecting that meeting between the two leaders, at least for now, it seems it's not on the table.
Right, and that's a very significant development coming at a very interesting time. We're leaving it there for the moment, Susan. Thanks very much.
As the leader of the democratic forces in Venezuela, Maria Corina Machado,
It's a dramatic blow to his long-standing ambitions. U.S. President Donald Trump's rather desperate bid for the 2025 Nobel Peace Prize has ended in disappointment. Despite the relentless self-promotion, bold claims of brokering peace across multiple global conflicts, Donald Trump was overshadowed by the Nobel Committee's decision to award the prestigious prize to the pro-democracy activist, Maria Machado. It was a rather emotional moment, in fact, when the Venezuelan opposition leader learned that she had been awarded that honor. The news was revealed directly by the director of the Norwegian Nobel Institute. Listen in to that emotional interaction.
And I'm calling to inform you that in a few minutes it shall be announced here at the Nobel Institute that you will be awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for 2025.
Oh my God.
So the warmest congratulations to you, Maria.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Well, I have no words. I thank you so much, but I hope you understand this is a movement. This is a achievement of a whole society. I am just one person. I certainly do not deserve this. Oh my God.
I think both the movement and you deserve it.
Trump has been making those statements, also talking about how he helped settle not one but multiple wars. He even rolled out a 20-point Gaza peace plan, and that, of course, has been attracting a lot of attention. But then the Nobel Award, the Nobel Peace Prize, is not just about those statements. It's about what goes on behind the scenes, the actual work done in the previous year. Most of Trump's supposed peace deals came either before he took office again or did not pan out quite as he claimed. The nomination window for this year, remember, closed in January, right after Trump was sworn in. So his fresh peace efforts were, in a way, too late for the Nobel race this time around. And maybe too soon for next year is one of the views out there as well. What really sealed the deal here, as per the Nobel Committee's message, they stressed that democracy is the foundation of lasting peace, something that they felt was seriously under threat globally. Machado's fight for democracy in Venezuela hit the right notes. Her steadfast advocacy for democratic transition in Venezuela stood in stark contrast to the world's perception of Trump's style of so-called peace. And of course, the White House did not take the Nobel Committee's decision lying down. The communications director fired back, accusing the committee of putting politics ahead of peace by snubbing Donald Trump. In fact, we will tell you more about that statement in a bit as well. Back in January this year, though, when Machado was briefly detained during an anti-government protest against Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela's Caracas, Trump called for her safety. He even called her a freedom fighter. U.S. Secretary of State, meanwhile, has openly praised Machado, calling her the personification of resilience, tenacity, and patriotism. So while Trump's team is throwing shade at the Nobel Committee in a way, Trump's team is also, in a way, complaining about someone who they have supported. While his team continues to make those statements, Machado, on the other hand, expressed gratitude for international allies, particularly President Donald Trump. After receiving that honor, the Venezuelan opposition leader dedicated the honor to the people of Venezuela and Donald Trump. Many analysts see Trump's obsession with winning the Nobel Peace Prize as deeply intertwined with his rivalry and envy, in a way, towards Barack Obama. Obama won it in his first year for his extraordinary efforts when it comes to diplomacy. Trump's rivalry with Obama, of course, goes way back to the 2011 White House Correspondents' Dinner, where Obama, remember, mocked Trump's birther conspiracy. Had he succeeded, Trump would have joined an elite group of American presidents awarded the prize. Roosevelt in 1906, Woodrow Wilson in 1919, Jimmy Carter in 2002, and notably Barack Obama in 2009. Trump has been nominated before by some heavy hitters like Putin, Netanyahu, even lawmakers from several countries. But nominations do not guarantee a win. The Nobel Committee keeps their cards close, and this year Trump was not even on the final list. So while Trump has been talking about the same and has been dreaming big and posting a lot about peace as well, the Nobel Prize went to someone whose work echoed a different kind of leadership, one which is rooted firmly in democracy and other values. After 2 years of relentless war, a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas has finally taken shape. Israeli forces have started pulling back from parts of Gaza on Friday, hours after the cabinet in Jerusalem approved a U.S. brokered plan to halt fighting and free Israeli hostages. Under the deal, Hamas is expected to release 20 living hostages and hand over the bodies of at least 26 more within 72 hours. While Israel will free about 2,000 Palestinian prisoners and detainees, including women and children. The ceasefire marks the first major breakthrough since the conflict erupted with Hamas at the October 7, 2023 attacks. Remember, since then, nearly 67,000 Palestinians, many of them women and children, have been killed in the Israeli strikes. Still, questions remain. Who will govern Gaza? How will Gaza's reconstruction start? Will Hamas retain its weapons? All issues likely to test the fragile peace in the days ahead. But on Friday, for Gaza's displaced residents, the truce triggered a massive return movement. Thousands were seen streaming back towards their shattered homes in Gaza City. Even as reports emerged of sporadic shelling in parts of Khan Yunis.
I hope the war will not return, God willing, but what was lost will not return. What was lost will not return, as well as the martyrs who were lost. God will compensate us, God willing.
Today there was some withdrawal by the Israeli army, and we returned to where we used to live on the basis that the places still exist. We are searching to find at least a mattress or pillow, because winter is coming. I think I will not find anything. With this extent of destruction, we will not find anything.
A 200-member multinational force led by the U.S. military will monitor the ceasefire and coordinate the humanitarian aid. Hundreds of trucks carrying food and medicine expected to roll into Gaza within days. U.S. President Donald Trump is also expected to visit the region this weekend. If all goes well, here's how the next few days can look like. Now that the ceasefire is in effect and Israeli ground forces have started that withdrawal to an agreed line, this will be the first of 3 stages of Israeli withdrawal. After the 24-hour period, Hamas then has 72 hours to free the 20 hostages that are still alive. We heard U.S. President Donald Trump say on Thursday night that this could happen on Monday or Tuesday. As the hostages are released, Israel beginning freeing some 2,000 Palestinian prisoners. A further 28 hostages are presumed dead. Hamas says recovering their bodies, some of them lie under the rubble of destroyed buildings, will take much more time. And then by Monday, once the agreement is operating, trucks carrying food and medical aid will enter Gaza to help the Palestinians, hundreds of thousands of whom have been sheltering in tents after the Israeli forces destroyed their homes and razed entire parts to dust. According to the UN humanitarian chief, officials have 170,000 metric tons of medicine, aid and other supplies ready for Gaza once they are given the green light. Remember, UN-backed experts have declared a famine in Gaza back in August. They have reported that more than 500,000 people in Gaza face catastrophic conditions characterized by starvation, destitution, and death. But Israel has repeatedly denied that there is starvation in Gaza. Now a multinational force of around 200 troops overseen by the U.S. military will monitor the Gaza ceasefire, according to a senior U.S. official. The force's makeup is likely to include troops from Egypt, Qatar, Turkey and the UAE, and their role primarily would be to oversee and observe the ceasefire and to make sure there are no violations or incursions. And if the first phase holds, it would move into negotiations over the next steps. But that's where the deal starts to look fragile in a way. Trump's 20-point plan calls for Gaza to be fully demilitarized, remember, with all armed groups dismantled and weapons destroyed. A temporary committee of Palestinian technocrats would govern Gaza, overseen by a board of peace led by Donald Trump and joined by former UK Prime Minister Tony Blair. Eventually, control would pass to a reformed Palestinian Authority, not Hamas. Hamas has ruled Gaza since 2007. It would have no role in its future. Its members would take amnesty or safe passage abroad. That is, if they renounce violence. No Palestinians would be forced to leave Gaza, and those displaced could return. An international panel would draft an economic plan to rebuild the Strip. But key disagreements remain. Hamas has not agreed to disarm, saying that it will only do so once a Palestinian state is recognized. Netanyahu, meanwhile, has opposed any post-war role for the Palestinian Authority. Israel also plans to retain control over more than half of Gaza in the early phase, with later withdrawals reducing that to 15%. But the timeline for a full pullout is rather vague, another flashpoint in an already delicate peace situation. Moving on for now, a major diplomatic development may be unfolding in the region, one that could reshape West Asia. Speaking ahead of his upcoming trip to West Asia, U.S. President Donald Trump has said Iran had directly conveyed its willingness in taking part in a broader West Asia peace deal, following its support for Washington's latest Gaza ceasefire plan. Trump emphasized that while American sanctions on Iran remain in place, his administration is open to helping Iran rebuild the country. Not just that, he said Washington wants to see a new era of cooperation that prevents nuclear escalation and reduces conflict in the region. Now, Trump's announcement could potentially redefine the US-Iran relationship. That's how crucial it is. And above all, it could also have far-reaching implications for the entire region, potentially influencing military strategies, energy markets, and also diplomatic alignments across the region. Trump linked the Gaza ceasefire proposal to his broader plan for regional peace. He said that resolving the standoff over Iran's nuclear program could open the doors to reconstruction efforts in both Gaza and Iran. He repeated his firm stance that Tehran must never obtain nuclear weapons. In an interview with Fox News, Trump said he had held, quote-unquote, very good conversations with the Iranian representatives about an unspecified deal, and he believes the dynamics have changed. In his words, Trump said that, quoting, "We are going to have peace, and Iran is going to be part of that peace," quote-unquote. The question that immediately comes up is what would Iran's participation in a Gaza deal really look like? Because Tehran brings huge capability and potential as a regional power, as well as influence across multiple fronts. Tehran's inclusion in any post-Gaza peace framework could not just shift the balance of power in West Asia, but also assist the US and its allies in rebuilding the war-ravaged Palestinian enclave. For now, Iran's response has been measured. Iran's foreign ministry has expressed support for the Gaza ceasefire. If Iran formally joins the peace process, it could mark one of the most significant diplomatic developments in West Asia in decades. Before we go on any further, a quick look at what else is coming up for you tonight. We get you the latest on the Russia-Ukraine war, decoding the developments from the battlefield as Russia's missiles plunge Kiev into darkness. Getting you a detailed report on the powerful earthquake that struck the Philippines. That's coming up in just a bit. All this and more lined up for you. Russia launched a massive overnight attack on Ukraine, firing more than 450 drones and 30 missiles across the country. The Ukrainian president has said that the strikes killed one child in Zaporizhia and injured more than 20 people, targeting civilian and energy infrastructure as the country prepares for winter. And residents in Kiev and other parts reported blackouts, damage to residential buildings, and fires.
We had no power and water when I left my house. I can't get to work because subway is not operating and buses are overflowing.
We didn't sleep at all tonight. From 2:30 there was so much noise. By 3:30 we had no electricity, no gas, no water, nothing.
7-year-old Ukrainian boy killed in the Russian strike was the son of a former prisoner of war, now badly injured.
This was the family of a prisoner of war. He returned home from captivity in March. He had been there for almost 3 years. He was one of the Azovstal defenders. They surrendered at Azovstal and spent almost 3 years in captivity.
The Russian overnight strike also caused transport disruptions and delays in Kiev.
To be honest, there is no power and I am not in a good mood. But I have faith that everything will be fine. There is no coverage, no water, nothing. But we are Ukrainians. We are the strongest nation and we will keep living our best life despite everything.
Overall, the Russian forces reportedly fired over 450 drones and 30 missiles across Ukraine overnight, killing 1 and injuring more than 20 people. Electricity supply was disrupted in at least 9 regions of the country, including the capital. Russia seemed to be repeating its strategy of attacking civilian and energy infrastructure ahead of the winter. Ukraine's biggest electricity operator reported damage to multiple thermal plants. Meanwhile, the head of Zaporizhia's regional administration has said that traffic across the huge Dnipro hydroelectric power plant, which is Ukraine's largest, connecting 2 banks of the city, was limited due to the overnight attack. 20 residential buildings were also damaged in Zaporizhia. Zelensky called the strikes a form of terror aimed at civilians, while Ukraine's prime minister described it as one of the largest concentrated attacks against energy infrastructure. The energy sector has been a key battleground since the war started in 2022. Each year since then, Russia has tried to cripple the Ukrainian power grid before the bitter winter season, hoping to erode public morale. Ukraine's winter runs from late October through March, with January and February being the coldest months. Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump said on Thursday that Washington and NATO allies were stepping up the pressure to end the war in Ukraine after his outreach to Russia's Vladimir Putin failed to achieve a ceasefire.
We are stepping up the pressure. We're stepping it up together. We're all stepping it up. NATO's been great.
And Trump, who has helped broker the ceasefire deal in Gaza, has admitted that ending the Russia-Ukraine war was proving even harder to solve. Trump hosted Putin in Alaska in August, remember, but failed to achieve a breakthrough. And since then, Russia's attacks on Ukraine have escalated. On Friday, the Kremlin spokesperson, Dmitry Peskov, has said that Moscow remains optimistic on the state of the Russia-US relations and hopes for a peaceful settlement. Speaking about the absence of any progress in talks between Russia and Ukraine, Peskov has said that process was on pause and that Ukraine had not taken new steps towards further negotiations because of the position taken by the EU countries. Earlier in the week, the Russian Deputy Foreign Minister has said that the momentum from the summit between Putin and Trump has been largely exhausted. But the Kremlin aide, Yuri Ushakov, denied on Thursday that efforts by Russia and America to end the war were still alive. Our next story sounds like it's straight out of a sci-fi movie, but it's not. Imagine picking up frozen shrimp from your local store only to find out that it's contaminated with radioactive material. We are talking about radioactive shrimp. That is what has sparked an international food safety scare, leading to emergency evacuations, a sweeping investigation, and a full-blown nuclear decontamination effort in Indonesia. Let's break this down for you. The alarm was first raised in the United States. The FDA, while inspecting a batch of frozen shrimp imported from Jakarta, discovered traces of a dangerous radioactive isotope most commonly associated with nuclear accidents like Chernobyl and Fukushima. In fact, the shrimp came from Indonesian seafood exporter. And while the US authorities say the contamination level was not immediately dangerous, they were not taking any chances. The product was pulled from the shelves, with major retailers issuing a nationwide recall across at least 12 states. But the real shock came in when the Indonesian authorities started investigating the source of that radiation. And what they found was disturbing, to say the least. At least 22 production facilities, all located in a major industrial zone on the outskirts of Jakarta, were found to be contaminated with that isotope. It includes food processing plants. Some of them export directly to global markets. The Indonesian government quickly swung into crisis mode. A national task force was formed. Emergency decontamination is now underway across the industrial zone. Residents living nearby are being evacuated. And health screenings have already found 9 people exposed to radioactive materials. And they were sent to the hospital immediately. For a country with no nuclear power plants, no nuclear weapons, and no domestic source of that isotope, this incident raises serious questions. Where did that radiation come from? How long has it been in the food supply chain? And could more contaminated products be out there? The idea of radioactive shrimp on your dinner plate may sound extreme, but this is a wake-up call. For now, both US and Indonesian officials insisting there is no cause for public panic. But in a globalized world where contamination can travel fast, the stakes are higher than ever. The United States is aiming to increase its presence in the Arctic, directly challenging Moscow and Beijing. US President Donald Trump has signed an agreement with the Finnish president to expand America's fleet of icebreakers. Icebreakers are basically specialized vessels designed to cut through ice-covered waters, ensuring safe navigation for other ships. Under the new deal, the US Coast Guard will acquire up to 11 cutting-edge icebreakers to strengthen national security in the Arctic. Finland will construct the first 4 ships, while the United States will use Finnish expertise to build 7 more domestically. Finland, remember, is the world's leading producer of icebreakers, with about 80% of the existing ships designed by its companies and about 60% of them built at its shipyards. The total cost of the 11 icebreakers is estimated to be around $6.1 billion. The first ship is expected to sail by 2028, marking the beginning of a new era in America's Arctic strategy. Right now, America operates just 3 icebreakers, a modest fleet as compared to Russia's extensive and even nuclear-powered icebreakers patrolling the polar region. The Finland president highlighted the importance of the agreement, noting that control over the Arctic means control over some of the world's most valuable and contested resources. And beyond shipbuilding, Trump reaffirmed Washington's commitment to defending Finland under NATO if Russia ever launched an attack.
Putin attacks Finland. Would you defend Finland?
I would, yes, I would. They're a member of NATO. I would. They're great people, but I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think he's going to do that. Yeah. I think the chances of that are very, very small.
For years now, experts have warned that the Arctic is fast becoming the new frontier of great power competition. The Arctic region covering nearly 1/6 of the Earth's landmass. And the region is estimated to hold nearly 20% of the world's undiscovered oil and gas reserves, making it one of the most resource-rich and politically sensitive areas on the planet. Russia already dominates the region with more than 40 icebreakers and a growing military footprint. And despite lying more than 1,400 kilometers away, China calls itself a near-Arctic state, pursuing what it calls a polar Silk Route to gain economic and strategic influence in the far north. And with this agreement, Washington is not just buying ships, it is sending out a clear signal. The United States intends to stay competitive in the ever-evolving global Arctic race. In Italy, the government is eyeing a new law that could ban the burqa and niqab in all public places. Critics arguing that this bill risks targeting Muslim women, restricting religious freedom, and fueling divisions in Italy's multicultural society. But supporters pointing to France and other countries that have imposed similar bans, saying it's about secular values and national sovereignty. And as that debate intensifies, questions remain. Is it a measure to protect civil liberties or a step too far into personal and religious choices? Here's what is known so far. The right-wing ruling party, Brothers of Italy, says the move is part of a broader push against what it calls Islamic separatism, including stricter rules on mosque funding and forced marriages. And now, for the unversed, the burqa is a full-body garment covering a woman from head to toe, includes a mesh screen over the eyes. A niqab leaves the area around the eyes clear. If the ban comes into effect in Italy, it would prohibit the wearing of garments covering the face in all public spaces, including shops, schools, offices. And those who violate the ban, reportedly, would face a fine. The proposal is part of a broader bill intended to address what the right-wing party of the Prime Minister has described as cultural separatism associated with Islam. The head of immigration for Brothers of Italy has said on Wednesday, I'm quoting, it's a bill that will essentially deal with regulating the funding of mosques and with preventing and banning the use of the full face veil. It also emphasizes the legislation against forced marriages. In Italy, we apply our laws which are based on a specific set of values, quote unquote. Now, this proposed bill would include increased penalties for forced marriages and requirements that religious groups not formally recognized by the state disclose any foreign funding. They draw inspiration from France, which was the first European country, remember, to introduce a full burqa ban in 2011. And since then, Belgium, Denmark, Switzerland, several others have imposed full or partial bans on women's clothing related to Islam. Italy already has a law dating back to 1975 that prohibits complete face covering in public places. Though it does not specifically mention burqas, the bill also introduces several new criminal provisions, including penalties for virginity testing, while strengthening punishment for forced marriages by adding religious coercion as grounds for prosecution. Meloni's coalition partner presented more limited legislation focusing on face coverings earlier this year itself. It is currently under review in a parliamentary commission. But it was not clear if it would be merged with this new bill proposal. Since the coalition has a strong majority in the parliament, such legislation should find backing. Although there was no immediate timetable for its debate, the proposed bill is expected to spark intense debate in Italy's parliament, with lawmakers and civil rights groups weighing in on both sides. If passed, it would mark a shift in Italy's approach to religious freedom and could set a precedent for further legislation targeting Islamic practices. For now, the bill remains a proposal, and many questions about its implementation and impact on Italy's Muslim communities remain unanswered. First, it was alcohol under scrutiny at government events, and now there are calls to ban beef as well in the name of religious respect and national unity in Malaysia. As the Prime Minister struggles to balance the interests of Malaysia's multi-ethnic society, his government is being asked to weigh in on deeper cultural fault lines. The controversy started over the weekend when alcohol was reportedly served at a gala dinner held as part of the Global Travel Meet 2025, an event that was organized by a state tourism agency. Despite claims that the event was privately funded, critics pointed out that beer and wine were served in front of Muslim guests, a serious breach of etiquette in the Muslim-majority country, where alcohol and non-halal food are strictly banned at government functions. The outcry was swift, particularly from the Malay nationalist groups who accused tourism minister there of disrespecting Islam and Malay customs. The backlash prompted a response from the Prime Minister, who issued a formal warning to the minister, saying it was entirely inappropriate and should not be repeated. But the issue has now escalated further. On Tuesday, a new political party called on the government to extend the ban, this time to include beef, out of respect for the country's Hindu and Buddhist minorities. In fact, the party chairman has said it was hypocritical to cater to one religious group while ignoring others, pointing out that cows are sacred to Hindus and that many Buddhists, particularly followers of the same, abstain from eating beef entirely. He said, quoting, "Malaysia is a multiracial, multi-religious country, but so far the government seems to have ignored the sensitivities of Hindus and Buddhists," quote unquote. Religion remains a highly sensitive issue in the country, and the Prime Minister's multicultural coalition is walking a fine line, caught between appeasing a resurgent conservative Malay majority and maintaining the support of minority communities who helped bring him to power in 2022. With the pressure mounting on all sides, the debate over what should or should not be served at government functions has become a symbol of a deeper struggle over Malaysia's national identity and political future. Switching gears for now, New Zealand's parliament came to a standstill after the Maori Party's newest lawmaker delivered her maiden speech. People in the public gallery and even some lawmakers broke into a haka, a traditional Maori dance. Take a look. What does journalism really mean in the digital age? The Pope thinks, in fact, he is speaking out against clickbait. At a private Vatican audience with global news agencies, the Pope called sensationalist headlines a degrading practice, urging reporters to uphold ethics, transparency, and the public good. He also warned about the risks of AI and how it could shape the way we receive and share information. In the first 6 months of his papacy, Pope Leo has been a proactive supporter of journalism, describing it as a public good that we all should protect. He said on Thursday, and I'm quoting, "Communication must be freed from the misguided thinking that corrupts it, from unfair competition and the degrading practice of so-called clickbait," quote unquote. As for what clickbait means, in case you're unaware, it's a form of sensationalist, hyperbolic headlines designed to make you click, often leaving out key information. If you read the news daily, you've probably come across such headlines. A promising headline that the more you read reveals it was exaggerated in a way or could also be misleading to a certain extent. The problem here is growing in the age of AI and in a world that is chronically online. The question becomes, how do you tell the difference between well-researched, nuanced reporting and empty, misleading or fake news? And that, the Pope says, is why journalists matter more than ever. Reading his speech in Italian, the Pope also highlighted reporters on the front lines in Gaza and Ukraine and reminded the world that free access to information is a pillar that upholds society. He said, and I'm quoting, "We are called to defend and guarantee it." He spoke about the challenges facing the media with AI, warning artificial intelligence is changing the way we receive information and communicate. But who directs it and what, and for what purposes? We must be vigilant to ensure technology does not replace human beings and that the information and algorithms that govern it today are not in the hands of a few, quote unquote. The Pope also championed transparency, accountability, quality, and objectivity, and urged journalists to never sell out your authority, quote unquote. And in an era where headlines compete for clicks and information travels faster than ever, his message is a timely reminder that journalism is not just about being first, it's about being true, ethical, and also reliable. And as consumers, maybe it's time that we pause to think before we click. Decades after World War II ended, the Solomon Islands, still haunted by its legacy, dozens have been killed and many more injured by unexploded bombs that are littered across the land, which was the scene of intense battles between the Japanese and Allied forces during World War II. And now a volunteer group is working to map the Solomons and identify the biggest hotspots for unexploded ordnance. Take a look.
So this is a very well-known battlefield in the Guadalcanal campaign, the Battle of Bloody Ridge, or also called Edson's Ridge.
When I started working with Hello and we did risk educations, we tell people to okay, if you see items, wherever you find it, do not touch it, do not go near it, report it. We encourage people to report it to the police.
In this day and age, our lives end up revolving around our digital devices, technology, gadgets. There is no running away from this. But there are ways to navigate this. And one unique way being explored extensively in Japan is abacuses. They are making a comeback. Also to help children in this digital age. But how exactly? Well, because they can help with arithmetic skills. It might seem like something which is obsolete, but its positive effects are immense. And parents want their children to use an abacus because of the same. In case you are unaware, simply put, they are calculating tools. You can also call them old school calculators. They arrived in Japan in the 14th century via China and Korea and have been used to teach mathematics in schools for more than 5 centuries. It's not just about moving those beads up and down. These tools are extremely helpful in many ways when it comes to learning, when it comes to concentration. Basically, according to experts, they support analog learning and fundamental cognitive skills, and that's a huge plus. Known as Soroban there, the standard Japanese version comes with 23 columns of 5 beads, with 4 lower beads having a value of 1 and a single upper bead having a value of 5, basically. And counting and calculating happens by sliding those beads up and down the columns. In fact, Soroban became mandatory in elementary schools. This was in the year 1935. Why? Because of the belief that they help with cognitive skills and also manual dexterity when you end up using them. And the number of specialized Soroban schools have flourished. But then they also saw a decline thanks to electronic calculators and then phones. But now they are making a comeback, and the industry has also witnessed a lot of growth. As per the Gakken Educational Research Institute, 8% of elementary school students were learning abacus in 2024. In fact, an abacus school in Tokyo had 60 students when it was set up or it was opened last year, and now that number has gone up to 120 reportedly. Given the many benefits that abacuses come with, should other parts of the world also follow suit? That's some food for thought this Friday. On that note, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas Tonight. This is me, Molly Gambhir, signing off. Thanks very much for watching. Have a good weekend.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
From Alia Bhatt and Deepika Padukone to Selena Gomez and Tom Holland, take a look at celebrities who have been vocal about dealing with mental health issues. Know all about Sean Diddy Combs' case and meet Indian singer Sonu Nigam. All this and much more with me, Diksha Bisla, on WION at these times.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
This week on the West Asia Post. 2 years of Palestinian suffering. A war recognized as genocide. A delicate ceasefire deal hinging on good faith. Will lasting peace return to Gaza? Yemen's Houthis escalate their war, turn Israel's Eilat into a frontline war zone. And in Syria, Aleppo turns into a battlefield. Government forces clash with Kurdish militia. A truce is announced, but tensions run high.
Watch the West Asia Post with me, Radi Francis, only on WION. World is One.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India. To some, it's rebellion. To others, it's a principle of nation building. Coming soon to challenge perceptions in RSS Centenary Year, Kesariya at 100.
On Inside South Asia this week, after India warns Pakistan against transgressions and terror, Pakistan Defence Minister saber rattles, saying chances of war with India are real.